Good to meet you.
For those of you who don't have the color copies of the printed material, I'm going to provide those to the association tomorrow, and they'll be able to distribute them throughout. I think it's probably through the portal, but if you don't have the color copies, hopefully one of your neighbors sitting beside you tonight does, and you can look at those as we kind of go through our meeting with you tonight. First, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Deanna Hook. I'm an attorney at the Memorial Golf Course here in Columbus. We represent the developer, Metro Development. Metro is a long-term Columbus-based developer. They've been in this community for decades. They own multiple apartment projects, and they manage many of them. With me tonight is Joe Thomas. Joe is the Vice President of Development at Metro Development, and he'll be here to answer questions. And also with me is Phil Moorhead. Phil is a landscape architect who's working on both of these projects. Can you guys hear me in the back? I'm trying to talk really loud. I didn't think to ask for a microphone, so I apologize. What we'd like to do tonight is just open up a conversation about the projects that are being proposed. One of them is on the corner of Wilson and Trabue Road. I will refer to that tonight to the Wilson Road project so as not to get it confused with the project that's going to be on Trabue Road, which is where Fairweather's Cafe is. That parcel and another parcel will join in. So that I'll refer to as the Trabue Road project. What we'd really like to do tonight is just give you a brief introduction to the rezoning process. It seems like through the portal, there are a number of people who understand the process really well. There are some people who don't have as much experience with the rezoning process, so I just want to talk briefly about that. And then talk to you about each of the two projects. I think I'll be able to answer a lot of the questions, at least the ones that were posted in the portal. And if there's questions that you still have, which I imagine there will be, concerns that you have, we want to have that open dialogue with you. Metro Development has a good reputation in the community. They really do try to meet with and talk with and have a relationship with other residents in the area, businesses in the area. And so we just thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight. The process generally. So the two properties are being annexed to the city of Columbus. That's a statutory process. As long as we meet the requirements under the statute, the property will be annexed. The Wilson Road project was annexed effective in end of March. The Trabue Road property, we submitted the application for annexation. We expect it to be finalized in late May, mid-June. So that's sort of how the annexation process works, and that's just a matter of procedure and taking some weeks to get it accomplished. The rezoning process generally works that once the annexation is completed or close to finish, the rezoning application gets filed. We request a particular type of zoning in that application. We will submit a site plan along with that and some limitation text. The text kind of gives a description of what the zoning will look like, what the project will look like. Once that application is filed, it goes to multiple city departments, so traffic, public safety, parks and rec, the planning division, the zoning division. There's just several departments within the city who then start reviewing the application. And that's really where the Wilson Road project is right now. It's been filed with the city departments are looking at the project itself. They will come to the developer with their concerns, their questions, their comments, and the developer and the city work together to come up with a project that everybody thinks will work for the particular site. So during that process is when we as the developer also meet with residents in the community to talk about your concerns, your questions, with the hope that we have a good working relationship, starting off on the right foot and heading down as we go through the development process. Once we sort of wrap everything up in terms of city discussions with neighboring property owners, we will go before the Development Commission. Development Commission is a member committee who provide advice to City Council with respect to zoning matters. The Development Commission will vote whether or not to recommend that the rezoning go forward, or they would recommend that it not go forward. We expect to be before Development Commission for the Wilson Road project in mid-May, if not the May meeting, then the June meeting. It's too early to speculate when we might be before Development Commission for Trabue Road because we haven't even filed the rezoning application. We don't expect to do that until May, June. After Development Commission, it goes to City Council for a vote. And City Council will vote to recommend the rezoning and the project to go forward, or they'll recommend that it not go forward. And that's kind of the culmination of the rezoning process. With respect to these particular projects, I'd like to start first by talking about Wilson Road. It's the one that's much further down the road in terms of planning and discussions with the city. So I gave, not everybody, I'm sorry, but there's a packet of materials about Wilson Road, and on the bottom, I think on the left-hand corner, it's highlighted in yellow and it says Wilson Road. That is the site plan. The first page is the site plan, which is also up here. I think the second and the third pages are the building elevations to give you some idea of what the building design itself will look like and the materials that will be used. The fourth page is the landscape plan for the buffering plan. And the last two pages are what's called the limitation text. And this is text that gives you some details about the number of units, the parking, number of parking spaces, those types of things. And I'll just kind of walk through all of those. We ran out of some of them out front, so I'm going to circulate them through the SWCA. So, but you're welcome to look up here, or neighbor has them. Great. So the Wilson Road project, this is the site plan for Wilson Road. The property is 5.75 acres. It's proposed that there be 132 units. That's a density of 22.8 units per acre. The parking for this particular site is parked at 2 parking spaces per unit. The city code requires 1.5 spaces per unit. So this is a not over park, but we want to make sure that there's ample parking. Garages, I believe there are 30 garage spaces, and those are here along the eastern boundary. You'll notice along the garages here on the east, there's also a landscape buffer that runs the perimeter of the property. And here is the property line that was the site development. The buffer here, the landscape buffer is 40 feet. So from the edge of the property owner, the Scioto Woods, to the edge of the pavement and the beginning of the garage will be 40 feet. This project and the Trabue Road project is 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. They're going to range in square footage from about 680 to 935 square feet. The rental range will be $825 to $1,050, depending on what type of unit is rented. A lot of information, so if you don't mind, I'll look through my notes. I want to make sure I don't forget to give you information that you need. The buildings are all 3-story. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings, and in the middle of these 2 is the clubhouse. They will be adjoining, but the clubhouse doesn't have as many units as the residential buildings themselves. The ones here along the southern boundary of the property will have more units than some of these shorter buildings, and I think you'll get a sense of that when you look at the size of the building. In terms of access, traffic, I know that's a concern that I've heard repeatedly and seen repeatedly in the comments and the questions that have been raised. So let's talk a little bit about traffic and the access. Right now, the access is being proposed on Wilson Road. There won't be any access off of Trabue Road, and there won't be any access to connect the apartment project to Scioto Woods. What we've been asked from the Department of Transportation, as I mentioned, we submitted the application. The city is coming back to us with some comments. the Department of Transportation has asked us to prepare a traffic study. The way that traffic studies works, and I think there's unfortunately a lot of misunderstanding or misconception about a traffic study, but it's very rare that you have a traffic study where you actually go out and count cars in an intersection. What happens is the city looks at your proposed project, it looks at the existing area, your intersection, and it has a formula that it uses to say, okay, knowing all of this information, we need you to do a traffic study, and this is the type of study that we want you to do. So we've been informed that we are going to have to do a traffic access study. That means that there'll be a study of access to and from this site. It's not going to be looking necessarily at the intersection. It's really looking at what is the effect of access in and out of this project to Wilson and Trabue roads. It will take into account some of the traffic that comes out of that convenience store on the corner, the dry cleaner and the convenience store, because there's a possibility of cross traffic. So it will consider, the traffic study will account for any issues that may be presented. After the traffic study is completed, we'll meet with the city again. That's when the city tells us you need, or not need, some type of roadway improvement. It could be you need a right in, right out only. You need a turn lane. You need a decel lane. We just don't know any of those things yet. But as we move through the process, our hope is that we'll continue to have these meetings with you, and that we'll be able to share this information and provide it to you as it becomes known to us. I think probably we'll have more information about traffic in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. And so I'll work with Pete to schedule another meeting so we can give you updated information about traffic when we have it. Yes?
What sort of intervals are you anticipating these being?
Probably a couple of weeks, just because we need some time to talk with the city to gather more information, to do studies, things like that. So we can probably every couple weeks. But everybody here's question was, what is the interval that you anticipate you may be having meetings? So I think we'll probably every couple of weeks or 3 as we go through the process. And obviously, we'll provide Pete with the updates. Some of you may not know Pete Ernst. He's the president of SWCA. I haven't met Pete personally. I don't know if he's here tonight. But I've been working with him and John to get them the information they need, so I'll continue to do that.
Pete unfortunately said that he would be here to about 7:15 today.
Great. There is amenities at this particular site, which I mentioned. There's going to be a clubhouse. There's also going to be a pool. Yes?
I want to go back to the traffic study a moment.
Sure.
Will there be any study based on the existing traffic and how much increase there will be? Because right now on Trabue Road, it's terrible.
It's a zoo already.
Can't get out. And Wilson, they're both very, very busy roads.
I know they are. I do live in, I live here too. I actually live in Scioto Woods, so I understand there is traffic on Wilson and Trabue. And Joe knows a little bit more about the traffic studies than I do. I'm not a traffic engineer. And so if you can speak to that.
Yes. The city will require us, obviously, to measure what existing traffic is on the existing road network, be it Wilson and Trabue Road. They will then ask us to do an analysis on what that traffic will look like in 20 years. And they'll use a growth rate that's given to the City of Columbus by a group called MORPC. MORPC is an area regional planning division that basically works with different municipal government agencies to give them an idea what the area would look like in a certain period of time. So they use that growth rate, add that to the 20-year lookout on the traffic issue, and that's where they come up with their analysis if the intersection works or doesn't work, is what it comes down to.
Are you on the honor system doing your own traffic study?
We have to do a traffic study. It's not a matter of honor system.
Is it an independent party or you there? You're doing the traffic study?
Well, let me just tell you how a traffic study works. We, as a developer, have to hire a professional consultant that has a professional engineering degree, and they also are licensed by the state of Ohio as a licensed traffic engineer.
Okay.
They then work, obviously, with the City of Columbus Transportation Department, who has their own licensed traffic engineers, that in return review whatever report that we as a group, meaning the city and the developer, decide what is going to be in that report as far as, you know, what direction the traffic is going to and coming from, what necessarily intersections to review or study, and basically what growth rate being applied to a certain area. Sometimes Morpsey doesn't study an entire area, so they may not have one particular area, so the city has their own tables. But they go to, obviously, these manuals that are created that have numerous traffic information. That they take those manuals, they look at the traffic flow on that particular site, put together pretty significant analysis. On an average, traffic study can go from anywhere from 30 pages almost up to about 800 pages, depending on the depth of the study. So, yes, sir.
How broad is this traffic study?
That's-
Most of the folks here are from Scioto Woods.
Yeah.
I'm from Raspberry Run, which is just on the other
Just
side.
west of Trabue, or
Yes.
excuse me, Wilson Road, along with Trabue.
And we have one exit coming on Trabue, we have one exit out on Wilson. And I agree with the other individuals talking about the amount of traffic that's already there. Will this study go beyond just your access path at this intersection?
The city will determine exactly what area needs to be studied. There's certain thresholds as far as the volume of units you're proposing. So they have a table, if you're at 100 units or you're at 200 units, where they use that table to decide how broad your study goes. So we have not determined that yet, but we will share that information once it's determined by the city how broad the traffic study will be.
And if I'll get to you in just 1 second, if I could just mention to you, sir, we really just found out about the need for the traffic access study, and other than a statement saying we need a traffic access study, we haven't had communications with the city to determine what the extent of that would be. So it's, again, as we get the information, we're going to convey it to you, but we just don't have the details of everything that will require us yet. Yes?
So is the traffic study that you're going to do going to estimate the increase in traffic on Newell and Bendelow? Because I mean, looking at the access to the apartments, if you're coming from Riverside on Trabue and traffic's bad, you're just going to cut through Bendelow to Newell to turn right onto Wilson to get to your apartment. And that's my concern. I live right there on Bendelow, and traffic's already going very fast there. And with young kids, I'm just very concerned that a apartment complex is going to have a lot of young adults that really don't care about traffic through a neighborhood very much. And they're going to just cut through the neighborhood if traffic's bad on Trabue.
Well, and the goal really of the traffic access and determining what's needed is to decrease the likelihood that that will happen. So,
how would that happen?
Well, for example, if there needs to be a turn lane or a widening of a particular part of the road, and if the intersection is functioning properly, which the city determines, there wouldn't be the cut-through traffic. One thing that Pete did mention to me, and I think is a valid point, I mean, the roads in the subdivision are very windy. You can pass them pretty easily, and I know that there will be some people who do drive through as a shortcut, but that's inevitable already.
It's a whole problem already. It could already just so we can get out.
Yes.
My name is Dan Solargi. I live over in Scioto Woods. I probably spoke or passed out some flyers to you guys over the past couple days. One of the things that I'd like to bring up that I noticed that when there were some other developments being planned around the city of Columbus, we all saw the Sunday paper that talked about the rental boom. The very next day there was a story about a development in the Clintonville area. And the developer seemed to have a little bit more respect for the neighborhood and that they talked to the people before they filed rezoning applications. I noticed that you filed your rezoning applications on February the 1st. Can I finish, please? We received our notification. When I say we, I mean the people who border the annexation. So 50 of the roughly 600 homes, those are the only people officially notified. Why didn't you contact us before going to the zoning department in the first place to get our opinions on this situation?
I've been doing this for roughly 10 years. Mm-hmm. We have basically done we've always reached out to the community in every zoning we've ever had within our company, and this is the process we have. From a standpoint of making the application, and reaching out to the community, it kind of goes hand in hand. If basically I look at it from a standpoint of I have the experts at the city looking at the plan, at the same time I have the community looking at the plan. So I have a consistent kind of feedback from both departments. So I get a lot broader brush as far as consistency and understanding what the plan should be at that time.
But
Question.
you didn't.
I want to interrupt this. I totally disagree with what you said. My name is Delray Bay. Could I approach this drawing for you guys for a minute? You're talking about you reaching out. I'm not that tall. Let me show you guys something. I'm going to show you this. Beautiful project that they're doing. Okay, this is my house right here. Okay, this is their apartment building. Look, right in my back door. You didn't reach out to anybody. I got this thing last week.
Sir, that's why we're here tonight.
Well, can I go?
This drawing out there.
Bill Ray, can I take? Bill. I think this is what people are talking about. Other developers have reputations throughout the city in central Ohio of contacting people before. You have the audacity to not do that.
I disagree.
You gave us 1 week. And how many people did you notify in 1 week? You gave us 1 week. I put this together. You didn't put this together. You notified 50 out of 600 homes. So what that tells me is that Metro Development doesn't have the concerns of the neighborhood, the adjacent properties, and so on. So Eliza Thrush at the city zoning department, you omitted one of the steps that takes place. When you put in your zoning application, a staff recommendation is the first thing that comes through. You neglected to mention the staff recommendation. Would you like to share what the staff recommendation is? Or would you like me to tell everybody?
No, what I would like, honestly, is to take a step back. So we know that can be a hot button issue. In terms of rezoning process, it's not completed. It is a work in progress. So even if we file the application in December, it's still in the process. Nothing has been decided. Nothing has been determined by the city whether or not they agree that the project should go forward or not.
So basically,
what the residents say. So this is our effort to reach out to you. Not to tell you that this is exactly what it's going to be like, that you don't have a choice, or that we aren't listening to your questions and comments. It's a continual process and a continual communication.
One question you said.
On the trade view, one person in our neighborhood was notified about this project going on. Nobody else was notified.
Well, hold on a minute. Obviously, we're here tonight as basically us reaching out to you guys to notify you. This is where it happens.
This is us reaching out to you.
No, sir, I respectfully disagree because I believe, as far as the effort goes on our part, we obviously cannot reach out to 800 or however many.
Why not? Why? No, because I'll tell you what, I could do it in a Sunday afternoon. All you have to do is go onto a post office website. You can find the carrier routes in here. I'm going to spend $175 of my own money to keep you people updated on a timely basis. You could have spent $175 to 600 homes inside of the woods.
Okay.
Why didn't you?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's start over.
No, let's continue. Okay. Why didn't you?
Can you answer the question, please?
Obviously, we're here tonight as part of the announcement of what we're doing in the process.
But it's already been done.
This is not a zone property.
This is the beginning stages, everybody. Let me tell you what the staff recommendation by the city is. The staff has already told Metro Development, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told by the zoning department, Eliza Thrush is her name, I'll be happy to share this information, that first and foremost, they do not recommend high-density apartments, which you're providing. You could have filed for low-density, medium-density, or high-density. You chose high-density. It's my knowledge that the city has already told you that they do not recommend that. They've got a problem with your parking variance, putting parking lots within 10 feet instead of 25, which is standard for the city. And they've also told you that there's not enough green space because of the parking lot and building coverage. Is that true or untrue? I'm absolutely correct. Is that in any of the materials here, what the city has already told you? Is that in any of the materials that you've provided us tonight?
It's absolutely in my
The city staff recommendations?
I have an opportunity to tell you more about the Wilson Road project.
But it's not in any of this.
It's not in, is it in what you handed out, what the city's staff recommendations are?
And we're here to give you that information, to provide you with that information.
I'm sorry, can I just have a yes or no answer? Is the city's staff recommendations?
It's not in.
It's not in here.
Materials.
I think I see what we're dealing with here.
Who is assigned to this project was unaware of it today.
I'm sorry, unaware of.
The person assigned by the zoning department to this project did not know of this meeting.
No, the zoning department doesn't need to know about these meetings, to be honest with you. We'll have conversations with them to let them know that we are having
It
meetings.
seems important for them to get feedback from us.
Oh, absolutely. And we provide them with that feedback, and we provide them with their contact information. That's why I'm telling you when the development commission meeting is and those types of things, so you have the opportunity to talk with them. I gave Pete a link to the rezoning application. I told him where it could be found, the contact information at the city. So yes, that information is available. I'll follow up with Pete, and we can get you everybody's contact information.
Unfortunately, Pete didn't let anybody know.
Wasn't this property in the township?
It wasn't the township, it's been annexed to the city of Columbus.
The board of trustees, do they have a say on, or do they have any say or anything in that, or did you take it before them and what they have to
It
say?
does go before them.
I'm sorry?
It does go before them. It's just
Okay.
a statutory process, so as long as all the requirements, the technical requirements are met, then it gets approved by the trustees.
Just to let you guys know, I'm Franklin Township trustee, and it did not come before me. We were only notified after it annexed into the city, and I have paperwork here. So for you to say that you came before the board of trustees, it
I
never
apologize
did.
then. That was my understanding.
Don't apologize to me, all
I
these
did
people
to
here
everyone.
have a right to know that this was a piece of property that was Where's the smoke? Which we never knew anything of, or it came to our board before it was ever annexed into the city. Had it been in the township, she's very right, this wouldn't be going on right now.
I have my card, I want you to do, I will follow up with that to get an answer on that. If I could, yes.
When did your feasibility study come out for the possibility of doing this?
Feasibility in terms of the internal feasibility?
I'm sorry,
For the
sir.
developers, when did your feasibility study come out about the possibility of buying this, annexing it, and going through the steps?
As far as our process, we went into contract with the landowners a few months ago.
Okay.
I mean, as far as the
So this
process.
has been just thrown together from experience on strawberry farms? Or, I mean, this seems, as everybody has figured, this has been a very hurried process.
I'm sorry?
As everybody, I think, in here will agree, this has been a very hurried process. I don't think that there's been as much, you keep saying, well, we try to get a hold of everybody. We have a neighborhood communication through the, on the web. We find out stuff, boom. We get a helicopter fly over the project here. We hear about it. I don't want to hear that you couldn't get in touch with anybody in a timely fashion.
I didn't say the timely fashion, it was.
Or any fashion. Let's say any fashion.
Well, I did personally contact Pete and John about setting up a meeting. And the three of us worked together to get information out about the meeting in a timely manner. We had a few dates picked out, and if some of them got too close, we went ahead and bumped it because we wanted to allow a couple of weeks. And I put that in my email to them, that we want to make sure that people had enough time to come to the meeting. So I know information is being shared through the portal.
Who's the current owner of the property?
The current owner is a trustee of the trust.
It's not been sold then? Because there's still for sale signs sitting on the porch.
It has not been sold. As
Okay.
part of this process, Metro has gone into contract with the property owner. The sale has not gone through. Yes.
I kind of want to go back to your beginning when you was talking about your traffic study.
Yes.
I picked up, or I understood, that your traffic study was very narrowly scoped only for that one exit and possibly the corner dry cleaner across the street. When the gentleman with the tie on spoke, he seemed to make it sound like that they would be doing the study at the corner when you said they would not be doing the study at the corner. So could we clarify that?
Yeah, I'll clarify real quick. The traffic study is a process in which the applicant, meaning Metro Development, works with the City of Columbus Transportation Department to work out actually what is the actual study area. So
Okay,
that's yet to be determined. So,
okay, but what's confusing is she got up and spoke saying that they were going to do a very narrow traffic study on the entrance into the apartment complex.
that is the typical study of a apartment size site of this site.
That's not good news for us. That's how it.
But again,
well, there's threshold of traffic. I mean, that's what they look at. There's certain number of traffic that is generated by a certain number of units. So they do it on a basis of how large of an effect that particular project has on the overall community. That's how they determine.
You guys are well developed
Okay,
in this
you're talking
area.
about, hold on, you're talking about the traffic going off to Wilson Road. What about the traffic behind the houses all along the back there? You're gonna have two-bedroom apartments, you're gonna have kids running all over the place, running through my backyard, looking through my window from that building there, looking at my bedroom, looking at my living room. Nobody ever asked me how I felt about that. You got that nice little ugly drawing up there, but nobody even asked me how I felt about that. Or don't care.
and again, my question was the confusion of what you said and what you said.
How about we do this?
Using that.
We will discuss this with the City of Columbus Transportation Department before we move any further.
I care about the transportation. Wilson Road, no, this traffic rate, who cares about that?
I can't answer this question.
Who cares about Wilson Road's traffic in here? I don't care about the traffic, because it's heavy anyway. It's heavy anyway. It's gonna be heavy. It's heavy anyway, y'all. Come on.
Yes.
Isn't it standard for the city's Department of Transportation to use the number of units in a proposed development for the traffic study?
Absolutely. But you have to, because that's where they draw the information from. If they don't take a hypothetical number, they actually take the actual number of units that are in that development.
It seems to me, though, that the number of parking spaces is a more accurate reflection, given that that's how many cars are expected to be moving in and out of your development.
Well, they use reams of data on the basis of how many units are within apartment development that they study over a year's basis, and they continue to update these studies over the year's basis. And they use reams of data to understand exactly how many traffic units apartment developments generate based on the number of units in that particular apartment. So the number of parking spaces are directly related to the number of apartments, of course. The parking is directly related. So in a sense, they are one and the same.
Okay, but my point of my question was, if we're here to get information, we would like to have clear information instead of one person saying this is what it's going to be, and you come back and say that this is what the city does, or this is what they require.
I will share our traffic study with the group once it's completed.
You act like you don't everybody leaving that apartment complex at one time. You got a lab over there. Yes, everyone gets off at 4 o'clock and leave. But this apartment complex, guys, people will be leaving one at a time every hour of the day. That doesn't matter. That does not really matter. We
actually have a member of the Ohio Department of Transportation who is a traffic engineer in attendance. I think we should hear his question because this is what he does.
I'm a licensed professional engineer. I live in Scioto Woods. Work for Ohio Department of Transportation. I do traffic studies. I did some preliminary numbers. Just to give
you want to come up front so everybody can hear you, please?
Must come up. I just stand here. Is that good enough? Okay.
So my preliminary numbers based on standard trip generation rates.
Sorry, can you speak up just a little bit? These people couldn't quite hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know I'm a transportation engineer.
Yeah.
I do traffic studies for a living. Based on the type of development, the standard trip generation rate currently is about 6.5 trips per day per dwelling unit, and that's about 150 trips per day. That's going in and out, so it's about 3 trips per person per day going in and out. During the peak hour, which is the PM, you get about 10% of that, so you get close to between 80 and 90 trips in 1 hour, in the busiest hour. Those are the numbers. Then they base the development improvements on those numbers. The study area usually is, well, it's going to be the driveway. It'll be the adjacent intersection because it's so close. And then typically, it depends on how many trips are being generated. They may go to one more intersection in each direction. So that's probably the largest, that's the area of the study for traffic.
Can you tell them real quickly what you came up with in the increase in the number of cars at a typical time, like we talked about?
What is that?
I didn't know if everybody...
So it's like 850 over the full day, but in the peak hour, it's about a tenth of that, which is 85 trips per day. Per hour.
That's only in the morning.
That's in the worst case.
Right.
I'm Nino Brunello.
Nina, do you mind sharing with me by email? I can work through with Pete just so we have some information we can provide that to the city from your perspective.
Yeah, and I know people want to see it as well.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
I have a follow-up to what I brought up earlier, and I appreciate everybody's concern about traffic, as we all should be. I think some of the greater issues that we haven't even tip of the iceberg would be property values. My name is Dan Solargi. Property values, potential crime, potential noise, stuff like that. Going back to the city staff recommendation, you know, the process that you said that they did notify you that they do not recommend high-density apartments. They do not see eye to eye with you on the green space or lack thereof, in that it's 90% parking lot or building. There was some other, I forget, stormwater or some type of issue. So the city has already told you that, no, we don't like this plan, but yet why are you still presenting it to us?
Well, because you're mad. Why are you so mad at them for approaching us with something? Now they're approaching us with some kind of concept. And
This is
so
our
what we
first-
submitted to the city, I'm sorry.
Well,
What we
I'm sorry.
submitted-
To be open and honest with you, this is the exact plan we presented to the city. So in order to get your comments on the exact plan we presented to the city, this is what we're sharing.
When did the city give you the staff recommendation?
It's probably been a few weeks.
Okay, so in a few weeks, basically, you haven't taken their recommendation to heart, and you're still trying to push this onto us. Okay?
I'm not pushing anything. I'm here tonight to listen, not to argue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
Well, but we've just been finding some discrepancies.
I'm sorry. I'm here tonight to share the information. That's all I'm here.
Well,
I can't say anything else. I'm here tonight to be transparent and share the information. That's all I'm here.
But if
I'm
the
not
city
shove
has-
it down your throat.
But if the city has already told you that they don't
If I
recommend
may,
this,
as I mentioned before,
why
I
are
have
you
the
still-
information to provide to you. The city, it is typical of the city staff, we talk about all those departments, it is typical. I would be floored as a zoning attorney if the city did not have some comments, things they don't like. They are welcome to do that, and we work with the city. This is the plan that we give the city. They are not happy with the density, which is the number of units per acre. I imagine many of you do not like the units per acre. They ask us about tree preservation, about green space. So all of the things that Dan is mentioning, we know that they're a problem. What I expected tonight with you and hope to do is have dialogue about what you see as issues as well. I think it may be some that the city also sees. So we're presenting to you the plan that we gave to the city so you can give us your feedback. If there are things you like about it, we want to let the city know that. If there are things that you don't like about it, we'll share that with the city as well. This gentleman in the middle, you have your hand up for a while. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Mann. I actually live on one of the properties adjacent to the annex zone. I've lived in the neighborhood for 23 years, and I love the wooded area behind my house.
Are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you on Trabue? I didn't quite hear.
Yeah, I
Trabue
actually
or
live on one of the
Wilson?
ones that are adjacent to Trabue.
Okay.
And not only I am doing it, but the local wildlife. It's a really important thing for me. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what you think the environmental impact would be, not only on the local wildlife, but on the watershed of Turkey Foot Creek, which is the creek that runs directly over there.
And you can see on the Trabue Road plan, which is a separate packet of information, that's a very early conceptual plan, but there is in fact the stream that runs along the perimeter of the property, Scioto Woods, and the proposed apartment. That is a stream protection corridor. It is quite wide. The drawing actually has lines that will show you the number of feet between the Scioto Woods property line to one of the buildings on the site. There's a very wide stream protection corridor. We are not allowed to build in it. We can't plant a tree. We can't tear down a tree. You're not supposed to walk in it. So a lot of that area will be protected as part of the Trabue Road development because we are not permitted to do anything with it and we do not plan to.
What steps do you plan to take to keep residents
How
out?
wide is that? It varies in width. So the landscape architect will try to keep it, but it varies in width as long as you can imagine it's a stream, so it meanders and the width will be different. But I think some of them are from the edge of Scioto Woods to the edge of the building, 230 feet, 290 feet. The print's very small, I'm sorry.
It's about 100 to 200 feet. It does vary.
I think you asked a question about kind of keeping people out.
Yeah.
We don't have plans to put up a fence. We have a similar project on Moselle Road that also has a street protection corridor. Half of that's been done and operating for about a year. The other half is being completed now. Joe might be able to talk a little bit more about whether or not there's been problems. We weren't looking to put up a fence just because we didn't want to block your view. A 6-foot high fence.
Yeah, three floors, right down to my house.
On his segue off his comment, he's over adjacent to the Trabue project, but on the Wilson Road project, on the watershed, is one of the questions I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Just to the southern edge of that is a creek.
Right.
When we have storms, that creek really fills up. Now, it doesn't affect me personally, but I remember coming into Scioto Woods, I know that it meanders through there, and then it comes back into Raspberry Run, the folks at the back of our property. You know, because you're putting this parking lot and with a very small retention pond, I would be afraid that that's going to even feed more water into that. Again, it's not going to affect me at all in that sense.
Oh, affect me.
I could have a couple things that I know. One is the area here just south of the pond, this area here, and then along the eastern edge. This is the part of the stream protection corridor as well. So this will remain green space. So with respect to the detention pond, I do know that. One of the comments that we received from the city public works, I believe, is to come up with a stormwater plan. So we are working through that process with the city. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like now, but we are working on the storm plan. We've been asked to do that.
Let me answer that a little more clearly. Everything within the site development has to be engineered by a professional engineer. There's obviously storm inlets on the site itself, and all storm inlets then have to be captured in a pipe and drained to this basin. This basin has to be engineered in such a way that it not only captures the water that falls during a normal rainfall, but a 2-year rainfall, a 10-year rainfall, and a 100-year rainfall. So the amount of storage in this pond has to be engineered to basically capture all the water that's running off this site.
So it'll be 20 feet deep, 30 feet deep. It's good. It's right behind my house. Thank you.
And then the water will then be released into the stream at a much slower rate than it's coming off the pavement or the rooftop. So it's engineered in the sense that all the water's collected and then captured in this basin and then released at a very slow rate into the stream itself.
Has the engineering for that plan been completed? Is it?
No.
They don't accept any plans of engineering plans until the zoning is complete. So the analysis that we do as a developer is we have an engineer do preliminary engineering on the site development side to see that the pond is sized correctly.
So you don't know if it's possible. So you don't even know if it's possible yet.
It's absolutely possible. Yes, I mean, we've done this enough times to understand that when we look at a site, they take an equation of the surface area of the site, the number of acres, and you have to capture, obviously, the size of the pond, that many number of acres of water flow.
The city's already told you that. What does the law then say?
If you
Next phase, and other people that live there that flood us against these properties, there are a lot of kids over there.
Well, we
What's
have
the law say about safety?
Okay, in the design of the detention basin, we have to build what they call safety benches. So it has to be, the sides have to be graded at a 4-to-1 slope, and then they have to come to an aquatic bench that is roughly about 6 to 12 inches deep, that goes out roughly about 6 feet, and then the pond can't be at any time greater than a 4-to-1 slope in the toe of the pond itself underwater either. So basically, if a child happens to walk into this area, they'd be simply walking into water that's roughly a foot high.
Does it have to be fenced in?
No, it doesn't have to be fenced in.
We're going to do that piece control.
I'm sorry?
We're going to do that piece control. There's 10,000 geese over here. They'll be moving over there.
That's right.
In my yard.
Can I answer this gentleman's question, please? We have a professional management company that manages the site. We obviously have the professional management company, they hire geese control personnel. Either they treat the grass around the actual pond to prevent the geese. They put strobe lights in the pond. We put fish wire around the pond's edge. We spend quite a bit of time, as you know, in any kind of area to prevent geese in that pond.
Neighborhood laboratory?
Two questions. Is there going to be like a physical barrier between that existing pond and the home frame like that?
The pond here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Like a curtain barrier or something?
That's a matter of discussion, absolutely.
Okay, second question. It seems to me that what's going to happen to Clark Graphics property is also going to have an awfully big impact on this. Is it true that your development is also trying to buy Clark Graphics?
No.
We have to work on that.
Well,
It wouldn't be worth anything. I'll tell you. It wouldn't be worth anything if you did.
no, we're not buying Clark Graphics. We have a contract on this piece of ground here.
As Clark Graphics, yes, resident,
No, I haven't heard anything from Clark Graphics. They'll be notified. They're notified during the zoning process. They have the ability to attend any meetings or reach out to us. I'm most certain that they know the property owners that are there currently.
I'm going to let this woman in the back give a please.
Yeah, so you said that when all this is final or whatever, you said the city council has the final approval for the go-ahead, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and so what's the percentage, or how often do they say, yes, go ahead, this has been approved? What's that percentage?
I can't speak to percentage, but what I can speak to has been my experience. One of the things that they mentioned is the city staff will make a recommendation, the zoning staff and the different departments will make a recommendation. Assuming that's favorable and the city staff is in favor of the project, when you go to Development Commission, that's an opportunity for residents, neighboring property owners to have the discussion at the Development Commission meeting, and then the Development Commission will vote based off of that. The Development Commission listens to both what staff says and to what the residents say, and they make a decision as to recommendation.
So we can go
through the process.
we can go to these meetings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will notify Keith.
How do you notify about the meetings?
The process is the city will mail you a notification of any property owners adjacent to the property. Deanna will contact your president of your association, and they will put the announcement on the portal.
We've already found that notifying Pete, notifying people adjacent doesn't.
Whoever you deem necessary for us to notify, we will notify.
You know, I would.
If you want to be the point
I just
person.
put a sign up sheet if you want to leave your name and address. Thank you. That's perfectly fine. My email information is available from Pete. I'm not sure if it's on the materials I gave you. I'm happy to give it to you. You can send me your name and address. We will add you to the list of persons to send notice to. I'm happy to do that.
Work.
Over here.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I have a couple. My house actually, kind of a Delray, that beautiful barn backs right up to the,
We love it.
back of my house.
This
So, I'm not.
barn that's on the property now.
Yes.
Okay.
It looks to me, pardon me, my eyes aren't real good, that the east side is gonna be garages, so I'm gonna have.
You guys me.
I'm gonna have garages all the way across from me with a few trees.
We'll have garages, and that's designed to provide the sort of one-story buffer. And yes, there are trees. There's two types of trees. Phil can speak more to the landscaping, but generally there's evergreen trees, which.
Excuse me, my question.
No, you live right here next to me. Okay, this is his house, this is mine. There's no garages. You got the house, good, but this is not where he lives at. You're all up here. That's all.
This is,
all down here.
this, from the association, I believe, is a no-build area. So you're not permitted to put trees in this area. You literally cannot put anything in that area. That's a part of the restrictions for this particular piece, this small piece of property here.
So we'll have to look at free access.
So wait a minute, hold on a second. Now you're saying I'm gonna be right looking at that basin, that flea-bitten pond.
With no trees, no fence, no nothing.
You're welcome.
And no protection for the children.
And I think the fence is a discussion, but we can't vote on our.
All right, then let's just go another direction. With $800,000 apartments, do you guys have any studies on what my property would be worth by the time I get ready to sell it?
And are you gonna reimburse us for the difference? Our problems that are people in here, we moved to this neighborhood, we have way more properties, and now it's putting in our lap.
No, I put it in my back door.
Gentleman over here, my name is Jeff Ryan. The gentleman over here mentioned something about a staff report, right?
Correct.
Okay. I would like to hear from the developer and the design professional you guys hired, what would a plan look like that would be consistent with the staff recommendation?
Well, that's the unclear part. And if you read the staff recommendation, it's not very clear exactly what they would prefer to have or not prefer. So it's a matter of working with the community, a matter of working with the staff. It's a trial and error process. We'll come back to them with a plan, we'll come back to you guys with a plan, and literally it's a trial and error process. They don't say we wanted to add this number of units at all.
So I understand the development process. The more units that you can get, understands the money. The staff recommended against high-density. Was there anything in that staff report that said
The actual staff recommendation for the corner of Wilson and Trabue Road is office space and no apartments at all. But they I'd also like to bring up
the exact words that they use is not a staff recommendation. To be transparent, the area plan, not the staff, the area plan calls for that corner to be office space.
And Jeff, I think you mentioned that. I think perhaps your name.
So everybody's aware, there is a plan that is generally accepted land uses for this area of town.
And I would,
not just this property, but the general area. So I would highly encourage for the following presentation, sharing that area plan, and maybe we can get it posted on.
Well, there actually was a link. I think that you provided a link to the plan in the portal, so there definitely has been a link to the trade.
I highly encourage everybody to be familiar with that. Okay.
And in addition, in addition, there is also, and maybe you are not aware of this, but regarding the other area that they're looking to develop over by Fairweathers, in 2011, the City of Columbus Department of Planning Division had a document titled the Trabue Roberts Area Plan. In that plan, which is accepted by City Council on February 28, 2011, it was recommended that those parcels remain as open space. So this is another plan that I feel like, once again, it's not a mandate, it's simply a plan or recommendation by the city. So I feel like the city has already put two things out there, and I feel like
that's why we go through this process.
And
Every property owner has the ability.
There's just the one Trabue Roberts Road area plan. For those of you who aren't familiar with those types of plans, the city develops plans for, let's say, Trabue Roberts Road area. They may have the Worthington area. So just different areas of town, and it talks about what the current use is, what they would like to see in terms of future use. And it's just kind of a general plan and guidelines. So as you're going through the development process, you can look at that to see when we file a rezoning, do we think the city will be supportive based off of what the development plan is. We do know that these two sites, both Trabue Road and Wilson Road, under the plan are designated as best use as office. That's a fact. I'm not trying to hide that from you. It's office. We have had discussions with the city about that. They're not completely opposed to having the use as an apartment. You know, we've had discussions and they said, you know, that might be an appropriate use because we realize there's not any other office space around. It would maybe be like a standalone office building. It may not be the best use. So they're not saying, no, you can't have it because it's office, but it's a discussion with the city to determine, okay, the plan suggests office, is this the best use? Perhaps apartment is, but is it the best use at the density that it's at? That's the conversations that we're having now.
Thank you for clarifying that point, that it is a process. But I would like to see a plan that is consistent, and if there are questions that the staff has, obviously you're in a back and forth process with the city. I think the residents deserve to see something that is consistent with what the city would support.
And if I may, Jeff, in terms of the plan, obviously we know the use issue, the plan is different than what's proposed. Are you referring to more landscaping plans?
Well, density.
Buffering, okay.
Seems to me like density and building cluster are two hot ones.
Yeah, and I've looked at, I mean, just today I was looking at some of the density in and around the area for apartment uses. This is an interesting part of the Columbus area because we have so many different uses around here. We have the residential, single family, we have some apartments, we have some warehouse, we have some industrial. Behind on Beeman is actually institutional. So there's a lot of different, it took me some time to kind of look around at the density of the apartments. Some of them really aren't that close because we just don't have apartment projects close. But, you know, what I was seeing consistently was a zoning that allows for 17 units per acre. So we obviously have some discussions to have with the city.
Well, firstly, I'm concerned about density. Secondly, I'm concerned about the access point because you know, you have an entrance and exit that's right opposite those northbound lanes. I mean, I pity the person trying to get in and out of that complex.
So,
there are 90 cars.
But how far north it is, the concern.
No, I'm just saying.
No.
It's right in the middle.
How are you turning south on Wilson Road?
And I promise
They're saying 90 cars. There's no stacking space. Yeah,
It's not 90 cars all at once.
Oh, I'm just saying that over here.
Well, this is what we'll guarantee you. This is what we guarantee. We will have a traffic study. We will share the traffic study. And there will be improvements made.
A question about the traffic study. You have this Wilson Road development, you also have the Trabue Road. Are those traffic studies going to coincide at all because they will have a big impact on each other? And if you're doing one at one time and one at another time, that can provide different outcomes if they're done separately versus being done together. Because what you do on Trabue Road is going to affect our Trabue Road entrance. What you do on Wilson Road is going to affect our Wilson Road entrance. And without looking at both of those, that can drive a lot of traffic into our neighborhood.
No, I don't disagree. You're absolutely right.
The other issue that I'd like to bring up is there was discussion, and there's exhibits here to show sidewalks, some pedestrian connectivity, but there isn't any dialogue about, is that going to be connected to some improved crosswalks, and there would be signalized crosswalks, so that somebody could walk down the street by and right now it's not safe.
Yeah, that would be our discussion.
So
part of the process.
The city has a pay as we grow policy. Part of that is on the shoulder of the developer, part of that is on the shoulder of the
And
city.
we haven't heard from the city if they do want the crosswalk or a signal crosswalk, but that's definitely questions that I have.
In my professional opinion, there are more unanswered questions I'm seeing in this exhibit than there are things that would never be covered.
Well, and that's the process. We're showing you this now, and as we begin to
You guys agree?
get more information, we'll share it, and hopefully some of those concerns will be alleviated or some of the concerns addressed. And I know that the signal crosswalk was one thing that was raised, and we're going to have a discussion about that to see if that's needed. In terms of sidewalks, you don't see sidewalks on this site plan. That doesn't mean they're not going to be there. We're required to have sidewalks along Wilson and Trabue. This is just a conceptual plan, so you're not seeing the inlets that Joe talked about for stormwater. You're not seeing the bicycle parking. You're not seeing the sidewalks. Not because they're not going to be there. It's just because this is the initial plan. It gets developed over time. And I promised this woman that I would get to her. So thank you.
Let's look at cross section of Wilson. You look at cross sections of the adjoining property and Trabue that you doesn't appear like from what I was looking at here that there's anything that gives us an understanding of the spatial characteristics of the Wilson property. And the frontage treatments, let's face it, I mean, what is shown there is a drastic reduction of current restrictions on that property as far as parking.
Yeah, the
So it's you have a very narrow sliver of land with a 3-foot hedge to screen a football field length parking.
And part of the reduction,
that's seriously efficient.
part of the reduction in parking is to allow us to shift the property this way. That affected the parking area.
I completely understand how it's derived.
Yes.
Part of that's driven by density.
Yes.
Because if you're trying to shoot 150 units on that site, then 156 or whatever it is, 10 per acre, that's what's driving the site configuration.
36.2
because you have these long east-west buildings, that's what's driving the fact that it's consuming so much land in the east-west direction. There's nothing but the density that's driving.
I'm just a woman. And from my standpoint, and I've been down this road before about 30 years ago with another community. Anyway, first of all, speaking to the two projects, okay, first of all, before you do anything like that, the city or whoever, township, whoever, needs to widen Trabue Road from Bendelow east to Hague Avenue. Because it's a 2-lane road. Okay? And the traffic backs up, and then all of a sudden it widens out and all this traffic pushes to that intersection. Okay? Alright. The other thing is, you don't want to put 3-story high apartments in a small area like that that's right up against nice homes. The majority of the people that live inside of the woods are empty nesters or young professionals. We don't have Number one, you've got 2 school systems inside of the woods. Hilliard and Southwestern. Now, guess what school system most people want to live in if they've got kids. So we know what section that there's more children in. But the point is, the perfect, as far as I'm concerned, perfect way to use that piece of property there is not even for offices. why didn't you put some one-story condos there? Yeah. That those of us who don't want to take care of our yard inside of Woods anymore can move over to the condo.
Joe, can you tell us who owns Metro Development?
Don Kenny.
Is he the solo?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And with all respect to Deanna, who's a sort of short-termer on the project, do we correspond with Don or do we correspond with you if we want to send something regarding these two matters to the
Well, short-term in the sense that Deanna will take this completely through the rezoning process. After the rezoning process, if we're successful, during the construction process, it would be myself. And then throughout the remainder of whatever time there is, it'll still be myself.
I'm going to write a letter to Don Kenny. You'll probably get one too, and every city council member should be getting. But don't let him tell you who to send a letter to.
Well, he takes that letter and he directly hands it to me and he asks me to politely address
To the previous lady's point, I mean, you're talking about a high-density area here of apartments, and obviously you're buying property for an investment. When you go to the zoning board and go to the city and they say, well, we want low density or we want medium density, is that something you guys are even willing to consider from an investment perspective to say, or is this the sale of this property based on having a high-density apartment?
Well, yeah, obviously the owner who owns this property currently has a certain number of dollars he wants to sell the property. So it comes down to the economics of what you can possibly do. But yeah, I'm just going to be upfront with you guys. There's a lot of work to be done here. We're willing to put in the work.
I'll sell you my property for $3 million. You want to?
My name is Patrick Martin. I'm actually a resident of Scioto Woods for 2 weeks, so this is becoming a little concerning to me. Property, but just kind of hearing, this is my first time going through something like this, and it sounds like many of you are going through the same thing. The story that I feel that I'm picking up is it's a decision between dialogue of the residents as well as the city planners, what they've got going on. Based on that alone, number one, I think it'd be pretty hard-pressed to find anyone in this room, with the exception of yourself, probably because of your relationship with this company, that lives in Scioto Woods who would be in favor of either of these properties, number one. Number two, based on what we're hearing from the planning, whatever the organization is, the development plan, the area planning, office buildings and empty space. If those two groups are the only ones who really opinions matter, this should be a non-issue.
Well, I think.
Well, let me answer this. Obviously, every landowner has a right to sell their property and rezone their property. So that's why we're going through this process. So there is a process to this, and there is an applicant who's us who's going through this process. So we will obviously listen to the city's input, the neighborhood input. We will either make a decision to modify the plan, change the plan, make some large buffers, add some trees, add some landscaping, add some different fencing.
But at the end of the day, you guys will be the one that makes the decision, correct? Because based on what you're saying...
No, ultimately, the decision is not made by us.
Well, if the city's saying that it's better for offices or empty space, and everyone here doesn't like the idea...
The ultimate decision if this ground is to be rezoned is by Columbus City Council. We do not have a seat on the council, so ultimately it's their decision. We are just a part of the process, as part of the applicant, moving forward with this.
Was our representative from the city council, were they aware of tonight's meeting as well? Or something?
It's not typical at all for city council members to be notified of the community.
Probably because they'd step in and do
There's so
something
many that
about
go on any given night. And Patrick, to your point, in terms of the city staff and the residents not being particularly happy with this project, I would agree with you. And that's where the dialogue comes in and we say, okay, we are recognizing your comments, we're listening to you, we're listening to what the city is saying. What can we do, if anything, to move the project forward and to make all all of the people who have a vested interest in the project, which does include you, happy with the ultimate result, or at least it may not have been what you 100% wanted, single level condos, but this is, we respect that you compromise, we respect you listen to us, and we all got to where we could live with the project in its final stage.
How did you suggest I come? By that building right in my backyard.
Sir, I will reach out to you individually and have a personal meeting with you to discuss this.
Because this is ridiculous, man. You didn't talk when you drew that thing up.
I'm Rita Rawl. I live in the Scioto Woods allotment. And I am requesting that an architectural review be done of the Wilson property for historical significance. This property cannot be replaced. That when it is repurposed, it inspires our community and gives value to our community.
Property has been in the township, I think, since 1953, if I believe. What's the year? 39.
We respect, but the current property owner has decided that they no longer want to own the property, they'd like to sell it for development purposes. So we understand that it's been in its current state for a long time. And
Why was it?
understand that.
Why is it being, in order to do this, why is it being annexed from the township to?
To provide services that the township doesn't provide, sewer,
But
water.
you can pay to be able to.
There's not the capacity to join the township in the sewer and the water.
Then the other question would be, why was the township never notified of us?
And as I mentioned to this
I don't have a choice in this matter. If we were to make an application, I'm sorry.
I would look into it.
Yeah, I would like to know why the township, being that this is an iconic landmark for years, there's been many governors and different people, and she said this would be historical. And this has been a big crown in the township, and then for the township to do nothing about this, other than at the last moment when it was annexed into the city. So to basically never even contact the
Well,
township.
sir, the commissioners from the county, they have a hearing on this very matter. So,
Why wasn't we notified about it then? When they rezoned this, why wasn't we notified?
it's not rezoned.
It hasn't been
It hasn't been
rezoned.
rezoned.
It's been annexed. The Wilson has been annexed, but it has not been rezoned. A rezoning application.
It's all public notice, sir, how this process goes through the chain.
That's what I'm saying.
The annexation is part of the actual annexation is part of public record. So it's not there's no hiding the fact. There's meetings, there's hearings, there's applications, there's city that weighs in on the term, county weighs in on it.
Joe, I'm going to let this woman just go ask a question and then discuss.
I just was curious, why did you determine that you needed a purpose? Aren't there enough around Columbus now? I mean, we need them on the other end. I don't understand why that was determined as that was necessary.
Well, we are an apartment builder. Well, we provide jobs, obviously employed by the company. There's 600 people that are employed by the company. We employ contractors that do work on the site, so there's a number of income that is provided by this type of product. We look at this as far as the area as a piece of property that is vacant, necessarily. It's for sale. So we make a contract with the seller to buy the property and rezone it for apartments. There will be, for some time, a high demand for market rate apartments, which this is one. This is a very nice appointed community. It has very nice interiors, very nice exteriors. It has a large clubhouse that has a lot of amenities. Movie theater, a large workout facility, a large resort style pool. It has a lot of numbers that attract young professionals to this community that will be most likely working downtown, or commuting from downtown area, that we feel like this is a good fit as far as this type of product.
Excuse me, Jeff.
Yes, I'm sorry, I said
Has there been a survey or a study
study done on a lot of the community you built on the property values in that area? Have they increased, decreased? Well, and then the crime rate as well, has it increased or decreased? The properties you put up, and would you put one of these properties in your neighborhood?
The first part of your question is as far as the property values, yes. We do get financing through the banks. We do a number of appraisals for this particular kind of property, and they do look at the area surrounding as far as the property value. Banks will not loan money for a property value.
Is my house going to increase or decrease in 10 years because this property is what I'm asking you?
Trust me, he ain't got to borrow money to build this. We talking about bank borrowing money, he got to borrow money to build that.
The property values of itself with multifamily, there's never been any record showing that a decrease in property value. As far as the crime is concerned, we have a very substantial lease background investigation, credit investigation, criminal investigation, all through, as far as the actual tenant that rents there. There's a very thorough process that we vet these people out.
What about the people who visit them?
Some people again tonight had an opportunity to speak. So ma'am, if you want to start in the back.
Oh, he didn't answer that third question, if he wanted this in his neighborhood.
Can you repeat the third question?
Would you want this in your neighborhood?
I don't mind.
I feel I need to say something about metro development really quick here because the questions.
On sale price. Well, that's confidential information, to be perfectly honest. That's not something that the seller will want to share, or the buyer. That's a contract that has confidential provisions. You can certainly call a broker and ask what would be able to entertain more. And then once the sale, I don't know if the number will be listed on the side. Once the sale is made, that obviously becomes public knowledge. You can find that on the auditor's website.
Do you know what the sale price is?
I do not.
Honestly, do you know what the sale price is? Yeah, we are not at liberty. Part of our agreement with the seller, it's a confidential agreement that we have between the two parties. If they would prefer to have the public to know their value of trying to sell a property, that's up to them. It's not us.
Joe, how common is it for you to sell a building, an apartment building, to someone else after Metro builds it?
Very common.
So basically what he's saying is after they build this apartment complex, they're not running it, they're gone.
You didn't ask a question.
Okay, how common is it for Metro Development
now,
to construct an apartment?
We obviously sell to a number of investors that we've sold to over the last 40 years. We have a group of investors that we have a very long-term relationship with that we continue, and then we manage it for them. But they are always involved in the process and always involved in the management.
Do you manage every apartment complex that you've ever built?
No, because there's some firms that have that.
So it's not uncommon though for you to build an apartment development like this. Somebody else buys it from Metro in the future, and you guys wash your hands clean, you make your money, but we're still living in the neighborhood dealing with the consequences. Do you see the point?
No, we have a long-term interest in the properties.
I can do that.
Right here.
Andy Ginter is on city council, and he's running for mayor, and I make a recommendation that every one of us contact.
Amen. That's right.
Not just Ginther, every city council member. Every.
Yes, show me here. No, absolutely not. It's not. The only voice from the city is not at the end. You're welcome to contact the city departments that have comments to the project. Again, that's Department of Transportation, that's planning, that's zoning, that's public works, it's the Parks Department. If I could speak just briefly about the Parks Department and what will be happening, that was a question that somebody specifically asked on the portal, and I just want to address it. Hopefully that person is still here. There was some concern about the park in Scioto Woods and would there be additional use with, children living in the apartment community going over to the park. I don't think that's likely to happen, and there's a few reasons why. One is sidewalk access, and there isn't vehicular access directly into Scioto Woods. And two, most of the residents that are living in the apartments historically with metro development, they aren't families with children. That's not to say that there won't be, but that's not typical of their apartment complexes. And then the other thing is, there is, as everybody has acknowledged, not a lot of green space on a particular site. So as a result of that, the developer pays into the Parks and Recreation Department. And Joe knows a little bit more about that process and how much money is generated into the parks, but it does generate money for the parks in the area, which would include the Scioto Woods Park.
Yeah, it'll be about $60,000 that we do in the parks.
On your plan, where will the kids play? Where are the dumpsters?
We do, I mean, as a company, we don't market to families, we market to young professionals, and actually we market to empty nesters.
But you can't keep them out.
No, but we don't provide amenities for children. We don't provide playgrounds, we provide any type of amenities for children. The dumpster area is actually a compactor, which is located here.
Right across from my house.
That's that. Oh,
Why did you not design upscale condos? You say young professionals or people without kids, why don't you design with upscale condos?
We are in the condo business currently, not by choice. We've been a developer of condominiums since 1990. There is simply not a market right now in Central Ohio to purchase and buy condominiums. Simply as that. Yes, sir.
Can you present that?
More to make money. My biggest concern is the egress of that property. If you, since you're part of this development company, if you, before you guys proposed this, sat at that intersection, rush hour, mornings or afternoon, to try to figure out how in heck you're going to get cars in and out of that. There is no way cars going north on Trabue to try to get on to Wilson to go to Trabue coming out of there. That's your biggest downfall. As I told creating a safety hazard.
I agree. As I told the audience, the city has the ultimate say in the curb cut, as they call it. So absolutely, where this curb cut is placed, and if it's allowed.
But if you proposed, what did the council or the planning commission say when you presented?
This is the first step. We haven't gone to anybody else.
I heard you
Can you present us with a schedule that tells us what the next plan, the next step is, and when it goes to zoning, before it goes to zoning, so we can have our say?
Absolutely. We can provide that.
Will you do that?
To whoever you guys see necessary as far as your web information, whoever is the portal that we want to.
Right. We'll give the information to Pete Ernst. He's the president of SWCA. We will rely on him to notify all of you via email, I assume. We will notify the property owners.
Pete's not even here, so. That's not even here.
Actually, Pete is here now. Actually. But I would like to make one comment. You just said that there's no market for condominiums. I'm a 13-year veteran of residential real estate. I promise you, there is a huge demand for condominiums right now. So that's a little trash.
Can I ask in terms of the notification? We discussed, and John was able to help me. We sent notices, mail notices to the owners that abut the property line here and the one on Trabue, and then I asked to have you post the information, I think, on the website and then distribute it through the email list. That's what we'll continue to do. I assume that most of you got notification that way. Pete, if you have a different method that you want to use,
I'm John, so I'm the one who posted all this.
Okay.
To speak a little to Dan's point, that I feel like the civic association is getting thrown under the bus here a little bit in terms of communications, because we can only outreach to the people that are, well, we have the luxury of the Nextdoor site, and there's more people on Nextdoor than there are on the association. So when we send out an email to get this information out, we're reaching out to maybe 300 of the 605 homes in the neighborhood.
And maybe I misunderstood, John. I thought that the association was also posting the information on the.
We are posting it on Nextdoor, but that again is not the majority of the neighborhood. So like Dan's making efforts to reach those people outside. So development company, if you're really committed to contacting everybody in Scioto Woods, you're gonna have to do something more than just rely on us to do this favor for you.
I've got a proposition. You guys drive cars out of your community, correct?
Yep.
If I simply put an A-frame notifying you of the meeting time and place, approximately 2 weeks before that meeting time, is that effective?
That will.
Is that effective? Is that agreed upon? A-frame sign that simply tells the time and the date and the place. Every entrance is executed.
Here's our sign that we This will be at every entrance.
Yes, and the gentleman from glasses,
I had one other question, and I realize you guys are not in it for giggles, you're in it to make money, and I understand.
Well, no, I don't, see, that's where everybody, obviously, there is.
Don't insult me, I was in the real estate before, I understand the process, please. Now, curiosity, just out of Strawberry Farms, from what I've heard, is doing really well, and it really looks nice to me. What are they running for?
Honestly, I don't know that answer tonight. I have to get back to you.
You don't know that answer?
I couldn't tell you the exact sum of money what they're renting for. They're probably around $800 to $900. It's a different market.
That's why I was just curious what your market was.
To that point, what's the most comparable properties that you guys manage to the proposed things here?
As far as comparable, Lozelle 23, there's Remington Woods, was probably the most comparable product because of the kind of the commuter traffic, that drives. From a standpoint of the one at Strawberry Farms, which is called Sport Point, it's a little different demographic.
So Remington Woods would be the
Remington Woods is probably the best comparable product. And actually, if you want to go out and see the product, that's probably the best area to see it because it'll be identical to what we're presenting here tonight, minus some variations of the site. 23 Lozelle Road.
Just outside. Yes, sir.
I have two questions. One, earlier you mentioned something about you can't put a fence back there along the middle border properties that can only landscape. Could you clarify that or hear the whole story?
There's the no-build area on this particular small piece of property.
But even farther up there, so there's either grass.
There could be a fence.
We'll investigate the fence options more.
And we're happy to look into that.
All right, and the second question. All right, the second one was, I was reading the information you sent. I'm not a landscape architect and engineer also, so if you can clarify this for me. So you're petitioning to give it a 10-foot setback off of Wilson?
Yeah.
Could you explain that in layman's terms so I can understand?
The surface area of the parking has to be back so many feet from the road. And I think that along Wilson Road, I believe it's 25 feet. That's required by code right now.
Yes.
And I think off of Trabue Road it's 30 feet. So what we've asked for is a variance from that to allow us to do the parking closer to the road.
Yes.
So instead of 25 feet, 10. Oh my gosh.
No, let's clarify that. The reason that we moved it that distance was to pull the buildings away from the property owners. Otherwise, we would have to be, the minimum distance from the property owners is 25 feet.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask a question. She's had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
And then I would really like my turn.
I just wondered, after listening to our concerns, if you can come back with some of those changes before the next rezone.
Yes. Simple as that, yes.
Yes. Okay, big question is Section 8 housing. So under no circumstances would any of these units ever be granted Section 8?
Ever? That I can't say, because the property may change hands in 20 years.
Well, let me answer that more directly. If we're allowed to by law to prevent subsidized housing, we can offer that as a solution. If it's prevented by law, I cannot, obviously commit to that.
So prevented by law.
We don't do Section 8 housing.
Okay, bet.
No one does Section 8 scheme of things. Okay, the big scheme of things, no one does Section 8 housing in this area.
And to be honest, right now,
No, I'm sorry. First of all, the property value and the rent structure prevents you from doing Section 8 housing.
Now, you got a
Simple as that.
certificate, they give you a certificate.
Let's be honest, I don't.
We don't, we're not in that market, we don't.
Section 8 housing, so I can't speak to that. I mean,
Well, no, I can-
I know that Joe and Metro don't develop properties that Section 8 housing.
But if you sell it all day.
But I answered that question. Due to the property value and the rent structure, it prevents affordable housing from taking place. It's simple as that. I've done this now for 20 years.
I've been a police officer for 33 years. I've been implementing Section 8 housing for apartments before that were bought from Section 8.
It is there. It's like right now.
Go ahead.
I have a comment and 2 questions.
Okay.
On the Trabue Road property.
Okay.
There's concerns on the impact on the stormwater runoff. It might add mud, soil erosion, sediment, and loss of natural habitat.
Into the stream corridor.
Trabue Road.
Okay.
Okay, it's a 100-year floodplain.
Okay.
Has there been a field investigation by the EPA, will there be, that's a possible wetland there, performed or proposed for the development? Second question, have documents been filed to describe the environmental mitigation that is being proposed? If so, can we get copies of those reports?
I'm going to let Joe do that.
As part of the development process, you obviously have to get a set of engineering documents drawn up by professional engineers. It is sent to multiple agencies, not only the City of Columbus, but the Ohio EPA. They do review for that very same reason. They have what they call an NOI permit, which is actually a permit that's issued by the state of Ohio EPA that allows
The
you.
401 permit?
No, we don't need the 401. Those
That's determined if it's a wetland, which
Well,
hasn't been investigated yet?
yeah, we hire consultants that go out and review to make sure there's no wetlands impacted.
So you have done it or you haven't?
I have to review the file to see what the investigation shows. So I can provide that at the next meeting.
This area is a watershed. Trabue's back.
Yes, and the city understands that, we understand that, we do everything to prevent any type of erosion, any type of sediment going into that creek. It's required by the city of Columbus, we abide by those codes, we prevent any kind of sediment from going into the stream by providing not only post-construction, which is your pond, but we provide construction methods while under construction to prevent any sediment from going into the creek.
So we will be able to get documents of all the reports, Army Corps of Engineers, whoever, EPA, on that location.
Yes.
What will happen to the pond, the current pond, right now?
It depends on what the pond is, or the structure is. If there's a pond there that has a wetland characteristics, then we preserve it, or we have to do mitigation.
The existing pond is in a 100-year floodplain. Yeah.
I understand that. If it's in the 100 plus, then we'll be developing that area anyways.
So there's no plans on destroying that pond?
I don't know. I can't answer that today.
Okay, I wanted to
I think what Deanna was saying is the fence that we proposed or not proposed, we sure wouldn't want to put it on the property line between us and the neighbors.
Why? Why? It should be on your property.
Let me quote you. What she was stating is, I'm sure you guys want to enjoy the woods view that's currently there along the street, correct? But if we do put this, it would be on our side of the woods, or not against your property.
Well, you can't be against our property. Our property was over the street, so.
I'd say no, if anything on your property line. I guess I'm not making myself clear.
Well, if that's going on the right your property, where the atmosphere.
There's a strip corridor area here itself, correct? we wouldn't obviously replace the actual fence in the woods, which is going to be outside the wooded area. So, obviously.
Before everybody leaves, I just got notified of an emergency here, so I'd just like to say there is a long process that needs to happen here. I want to do everything in my power I can to stop this before it even gets to City Council. We can stop this before it gets at the Development Commission. Maybe Joe will take our concerns and the city's recommendations apart and rescind your offer to buy this property. And no hard feelings, go somewhere else with your money. I do have to leave, had an emergency, as I said. I'll be available. You can contact me by email. I'm sorry, I'm a little shaking right now. My name's Dan. I live over on Whitworth. So anyway, we can stop this, people. So if you want to stop it, contact your city council member. Contact all of them. Contact Don Kinney. Tell him to go somewhere else. Contact the mayor's office. Write letters. Do everything. In the next couple weeks, you'll be receiving something in the mail from me. It'll give you information about how to follow up with Development Commission meetings. It's not going to be until May. I'm not going to trust you guys. No offense, you gave us 1 week to come up with this to notify us of anything, but I'll make sure that you're aware of Development Commission meetings. If it gets to zoning, which it's not, we're gonna beat this before it gets there. Give you an opportunity to just quit while you're ahead. But anyway, look for something in the mail. Look for signs at the entrances where you can get updates on everything. And
thanks, Dan.
Thanks for coming out, guys. Anybody has posters? I'll collect the rest of the posters so I can put them up. Yes.
I have a couple of questions regarding the city council relations that we have on these two properties. And my first question is it standard professional practice to consider the entire acreage of a property to determine density?
Yes.
Now, is it standard professional practice to consider the entire acreage when most of the acreage of the property cannot be touched?
Yes.
With development?
Correct.
Yeah,
we're purchasing the entire acres. So,
but you're not allowed to develop it.
You have rights as a property owner when you purchase a piece of property to develop it with that certain zoning category that we're applying. Yes.
Going up 270 on the north side, there is massive, large apartment buildings like Truman Drive in here has large buildings being built. Cemetery behind the new medical complex where I'm right out, there's another huge building. Going up north on Riverside Drive, there are more very large buildings being built. Do you really think that you're going to be buildings, it's going to be economical, or is it going to become like an urban blight down there?
No, we have obviously an economic model we look at when we purchase this property. We look at it from the standpoint of a 30-year plan. So our estimation is that we have a high occupancy rate.
Do your other structures have no green space?
That's why we purchased it into the park. There's an equation there as far as amount you use for rate
I need a lot of things.
What is